Well, Super Rugby got off with a bang last night. Two away wins. Didn't see that coming. Away wins are generally pretty hard to come by in Super Rugby, and yet we start the week with two of them. Um, yeah, I suppose pretty good games, both of them. They had lots of lead changes, and both ended up being pretty tight affairs. So, in terms of being an ad for the competition, it's pretty good. Both games had enough tries to kind of keep things interesting. So, yeah, pretty happy with the start to the season. Start with the first one. The Highlanders, notorious for not being able to get away wins, start the season with one. It wasn't without its controversy this game, but I'll get to that in a bit. So the crowd seemed pretty good for an opening match. It wasn't sold out, but it was still a pretty solid crowd. Good weather for the game as well. Had loads of tries. Adrian Ta'avao and Nana Satura got two for the Chiefs. Parkinson, Frizzell, and Aaron Smith, three tries together for the Highlanders. So the Chiefs actually outscore the Highlanders in terms of tries, but in terms of points, it's the Highlanders that get the job done. Josh Ioane was pretty useful with the boot, whereas the Chiefs had like Brad Weber doing their goal kicking, which was a bit bizarre. Sean Stevenson took one shot as well, and that was pretty horrendous. The Beaver. Did he slot one? So, I mean, there was all kinds of kicking things going on for the Chiefs. The sooner DMAC is back, I suppose, the better for them. But it's pretty hard given that Tian Falcon, who would have been the backup, is gone for the season with an injury. So, yeah, it was a nice crowd. So much pressure on the Chiefs early. The Highlanders just had all the ball, all the territory. At one point, it was 70% possession and 90% territory as I was following it. So it was pretty crazy. But they didn't get any points for ages. They had one try denied by the TMO, probably given the referee called it a try and asked for the TMO to confirm. He did overturn it. Like, it's got to be a clear held up. I think it's one of those ones that if he'd said held up, he would have stuck with held up. If he'd said try, he'd probably go with try because it possibly touched a blade of grass. But the TMO overruled it, so wasn't going the Highlanders' way early, although they did score that first try to Parkinson. But then as soon as they kind of kicked off, they struggled to get their own exit, and some of the line-out work was a bit scratchy. Some of the passes were loose from both sides. It was a bit of rust, I guess, at the start of the season, so it's to be expected. Chiefs came back into the game, scored a couple of tries, took the lead. At one point, the Chiefs had, they were winning with a bonus point. That's how well they were doing. But the Highlanders weren't to let that get them down. I think their bench probably just had a bit more impact. Frizzell was pretty massive when he came on. Aaron Smith certainly helped things. So for me, that was probably one of the key differences is just the impact of the bench just seemed to be a fair bit greater from the Highlanders. That being said, Anton Leonard-Brown had a smashing game for the Chiefs. He had 10 tackle busts, 5 offloads. He was just everywhere. Luke Whitelock was busy, 15 out of 15 tackles. So, final stats, run meters 330 to 424. So, actually, the Highlanders with a few more run meters. Not traditionally their game, but Aaron Major has been talking about making that more of their game. Position and territory edge to the Highlanders. Again, that's what they're not usually known for, but Aaron Major has said they're looking to shift that. Tackling percentage is pretty even in the 80s, low 80s, so not that high. If you compare it to some of the Northern Hemisphere games, perhaps this was a bit more open. You can see by the amount of tries scored, that's true. Penalties conceded, 10 points to 7. The biggest issue was probably the red card. That was a bit of a... it was Tompkinson got a red card for a hit on Brodie Retallick. The ref said it was just like a direct shoulder charge to the head, but... You see those ones where it's a proper shoulder charge. It's like the old rugby league style. No hands, just leading with the shoulder directly at someone's head. This didn't look like that. It just looked like he was going in for a tackle and his arm perhaps didn't get round in time. It was a red card. It seemed crazy, but Glenn Jackson was sure. He's a former player. I don't know, man. Do former players make the best refs? Perhaps not. But it didn't seem to affect the Highlanders. They actually, after Beaver kicked the penalty from that resulting play, Then it was just all the Highlanders. They looked like they had the extra man, despite having a man down. So, yeah, they put massive pressure on, and Aaron Smith went over for that final try from a scrum. So, yeah, Chiefs from a bonus point win to a losing bonus point. It's pretty disappointing for them to start the season. Although, I mean, positives, Auburn Ledger actually looked pretty good at 10. Had some pretty slick plays for a guy who's spent most of his professional career kind of in the midfield. Retallick is class as always. Allardyce gives away 3 penalties out of the Chiefs' 10. That guy just sucks for penalties. I know I said in my preview he's not my favourite player. Dumb penalties. That guy's just frustrating. But yeah. Weber got hurt. See if he comes right. But yeah, man. Big effort from the Highlanders. Good result. Away win. And yeah, they'll take that all the way to the bank. It's a pretty disappointing start for the Chiefs, but hey, it's a New Zealand team. It's always going to be tough when you start things off like that. The next one, the Rebels got their win over the Brumbies, 34 points to 27. Again, a lot of tries, 9 tries in this one. For the Brumbies, it was Fainga, Arnold, Alatoa, and Carter. For the Rebels, English, Tudor-Maddox, Phillip, and Rangi. If you notice the way the tries were scored, those are all forwards. It's either front or second row for the Brumbies, whereas the Rebels kind of, midfield, winger, second row, and hooker. It's a bit of a mix. So I suppose that's a wee bit concerning if you're a Brumbies fan, because they are supposed to be playing a bit more expensive. We've seen flashes of it last season where they would just cut teams to bits. You got guys like Tom Banks there. You got Henry Spate. But yeah, it was still kind of the maul and the 5 meter out stuff that was getting most of the pay. But yeah, it was another. I think the lead changed 5 times in this game. The crowd didn't seem that good. It seemed okay, but I haven't seen the official attendance numbers yet. Hopefully, it was a decent crowd. Perhaps sometimes the camera angles can be a wee bit deceiving. But if I had to summarize this game in a few words, it'd kind of be missed opportunities for both sides. I think there were blown tries for at least Meeks, Kuridrani, Korobidi, and English. So most of those are Rebels, but still. Yeah, these teams still... The commentators talked it up at the end as being not like a first game of the season game. I still think it was a bit like a first game of the season game. It's the first game of the season, so that makes sense. But yeah, a fair few blown opportunities. Some of the decision-making wasn't quite there. And neither side, once they scored, was kind of able to really exit well and punch back. Like, you look at some of the times these teams scored. 13 minutes, punch back at 16 minutes. 22 minutes, punch back at 28 minutes. 32 minutes, punch back at 35 minutes. So 73, 78. Neither team was able to score and then kind of settle the game down. It was a lot of back and forward, tit for tat stuff. I mean, I'm not saying it was a bad game. It was interesting. Very windy. So the Brumbies had the wind in the first half, and then the Rebels had it for the second half, and that seemed to make the Brumbies struggle a wee bit, having to kind of run the ball out. Wasn't really paying as much for them as when they had the wind. But yeah, still a few loose hands, some good skills, and also some poor ones. Like Simone gave away a try to Maddox. Like, that is just an absolute howler. He was in his own 22, and with the wind, still decided to just do a little chip cross kick pass, and it just went nowhere. And Maddox just scooped it up and took that try all the way to the bank. And when you look at that scoreline, that was pretty costly. That's a pretty disastrous start to his Brumbies career. Pocock went off after 5 minutes, failed an HIA. That's very concerning if you're a Brumbies fan. Pulu went off after a whack to the face after about 10 minutes. So I suppose you don't get too disheartened if you're a Brumbies fan, because 2 of your better players go off early, and you're still competitive. They were ahead at halftime, 22 points to 19. Had the better of the territory and possession, better tackling rate, but the Rebels still had the run meters. That seems to be the way they're going to play the game. Their forward pack was under a bit of pressure. That Brumbies scrum was putting them under the pump, but in most of other areas, you'd probably, maybe the back row, McCaffrey was looking pretty good for the Brumbies. But yeah, the Rebels had the edge in a fair few key areas, but Samu looked good when he came on. He should probably be starting. Guinea had 3 try assists. That guy is going to be key to the Rebel season. They need to keep him fit. They mentioned he only played 8 games last year and was still their top try assister. So, yeah, very important. It's a good start to the campaign for the Rebels. They did the same last year. They got off to a flying start within the Aussie Conference. They'll need to do that a bit more when they face some non-Aussie Conference teams in the coming weeks. But 2 away wins. I certainly didn't pick these. Encouraging starts for the Highlanders and for the Rebels. You guys let me know your thoughts on the games. What did you think? Key moments, key decisions, and key players, whatnot. I'll talk to you again soon. I'm off to the Blues game this evening. Alright, see you guys later.